Chosen one. Oh, you think you're just ordinary? Let me tell you something. You're the plot twist no one saw coming. You are the quiet storm, the fire beneath the surface, the one who doesn't just walk into rooms. You shift them. People feel you before you even speak, and that's not by accident. That's power. That's presence. This is your reminder. You are not here to fit into someone's watered-down version of life. You are here to stand out, to rattle cages, to wake the world up just by being fully you. The truth is, not everyone will understand it, and that's fine. Some people will call it luck. Others will call it arrogance. But you know it's destiny. So take this moment, right here, right now, to own it. You are sharper than the noise, louder than the whispers, and too rare to be ignored. The fact that you're still standing, still pushing, still growing, that alone makes you unstoppable. This is your chapter. This is your fire. And the world, it's about to see exactly what you're made of. There comes a turning point where influence loses its grip, and tactics that once held sway now crumble upon contact. Deception becomes transparent, like ink dissolving in water, visible but powerless. Subtle provocations, feigned kindness, backhanded gestures. None of it ignites the old responses. The script has shifted, and those who once directed the play find themselves without an audience, looking for purpose and peace. Hit subscribe and start the journey. The remarkable part? No announcement, no declaration of boundaries, just quiet adjustments. The glances grow sharper, the silences louder, and the instincts, once doubted, now act with certainty. There's a stillness in this strength, unsettling to those who once thrived on confusion. They toss the usual games into the air, but the wind doesn't catch them. Instead, they drop, unacknowledged, ineffective. This isn't a mask of indifference or pride. It's perception honed like a blade, not to harm, but to cut through the fog. One doesn't need to expose the lie out loud. It collapses under its own weight when it meets unwavering awareness. The way tones are sifted, pauses decoded, intentions sensed before words are formed. It rewrites the rules of engagement entirely. What once passed for clever manipulation now looks like a child's riddle to a seasoned mind. And while they scramble for new angles, the mind they're up against isn't battling, it's observing. That is what unsettles them the most. Not retaliation, but refusal. Not chaos, but calm. Now, conversations behind the curtain aren't about gullibility or naivety. They're lined with warnings, a quiet reverence for someone who cannot be disoriented, no matter the disguise. Not because of arrogance, but because clarity, once earned, does not slip away. What once invited entanglement now draws distance, and in that space, control withers. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. You move with a rhythm that confuses those who rely on noise to be noticed. Your silence isn't hesitation, it's precision. What unsettles others is not just what you do, but the way you do it. Measured, unshaken, and without a single ounce of desperation. While others rush to broadcast their cleverness, you operate on a different frequency. Tuned not to impress, but to understand. They misread your patience as delay, your stillness as an action, unaware that you're already navigating scenarios they haven't even thought of yet. Every encounter, every misstep you've seen has become part of a code you've quietly mastered, not just watching, but forecasting, decoding intent long before it's voiced. You read dynamics like a language, not just words but patterns, when they shift, when they repeat, when they deviate. People speak to hide, but you listen to learn. That unnerves them. You don't match their energy. You study its source. You aren't avoiding conflict. You're bypassing chaos. You calculate when to engage and when silence is the sharpest move. Your foresight isn't an accident. It's born from surviving shadows, from watching people shape their truth to serve themselves. Now that your insight is undeniable, those who once dismissed you are forced to admit, not out loud, of course, that you were never behind. You were just already where they're trying to get. And now, even when you say nothing, the atmosphere shifts. That's not fear. That's recognition. There's a kind of awareness that doesn't come from lessons or lectures, but from instinct sharpened by reality. It doesn't wear credentials or seek approval. It just exists, and it sees. Not in the obvious ways that people expect, but in the flickers others overlook. A change in rhythm, a contradiction between tone and intention, a silence that says more than a speech. This kind of insight isn't learned, it's felt. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always, while others dress their judgment in jargon. You hear what's left unspoken. You've always had that quiet radar, not because you were trained, but because you were tuned in from the start. It's not about exposing people. It's about recognizing what's real when appearances try to deceive. That unsettles those who depend on image to mask substance. Because when you're in the room, their carefully curated layers start to peel. Their stories stutter. Their roles blur. You're not hunting for flaws. You just see too clearly for their comfort. And the truth is, depth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it's standing at the edge, listening while others perform. And in those moments, your presence becomes a mirror they can't manage. You weren't built to fit the mold. You were made to see through it. Some individuals unsettle entire systems without saying a word. Just by choosing to think independently and move through life with intention, they create a quiet disruption. Structures that rely on unquestioned routines or masked intentions begin to falter when observed through a clear lens. It's not about making noise or stirring conflict. It's about being grounded in a truth that refuses to conform. That silent conviction sends ripples through any space anchored in illusion. Rooms steeped in unspoken rules or guarded performances tremble slightly when met with genuine presence. There's a noticeable shift when someone walks in and refuses to engage in social theater. No dramatics, no resistance, just a calm refusal to mimic behavior that doesn't align with reality. It unsettles those who've hidden behind unchallenged authority or rehearsed normalcy. This disruption doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from the inability to be shaped by expectations that were never sincere to begin with. The steady stance of someone not asking for approval or playing roles shines an awkward light on everything that's been faked. When someone chooses clarity over pretense, it acts like a mirror, reflecting what others have worked hard to keep distorted. It's not about drawing attention. It's not about dismantling things with words. The transformation begins in the way choices are made, in the refusal to adopt what doesn't feel honest. That clarity disturbs those who benefit from confusion. That presence makes invisible walls visible. That quiet rebellion is often misunderstood, so it's twisted, silenced, or rejected. But the discomfort it causes reveals exactly what it was meant to, a reality trying to hold itself together with illusion. Make your impact eternal. Join now and be a light in someone's darkness. Some carry a quiet sharpness, not by accident, but by choice. Rather than rushing to display depth, they step back with intention, letting the space reveal its own tone. There's a deliberate stillness that acts as a filter. Those craving attention show themselves, while the ones watching gather what matters. The room becomes a stage for performance, but the true observer isn't there to perform. They're noting timing, tone, and what slips through the cracks. While others compete to be heard, the observer rests in calm disinterest, allowing assumptions to build unchecked. Misread as indifferent or unaware, they become invisible to those focused on winning approval. Yet behind the silence is a mind threading pieces together, mapping behaviors, recognizing which gestures hide doubt and which words mask the need to dominate. There's no urgency in them to step into the spotlight. Their energy remains low-key, non-threatening, which only sharpens their vantage point. Inflated egos rise, unguarded, believing they've claimed control of the narrative. But when the moment demands clarity, real clarity, it's the silent one who steps forward with substance, while those who chased recognition falter in the details. It's never about proving intelligence. It's about understanding the rhythm of interaction, about catching what's beneath the practiced tone and the polished script. While some play for the moment, others are documenting the entire sequence. No need to correct every inaccuracy. No need to win every verbal contest. The end game is never about dominance. It's about discernment. That kind of awareness doesn't speak often, but when it does, it cuts through noise like a bell through fog. What was once underestimated becomes unavoidable, and those who assumed emptiness now find themselves unmasked by their own reflections in someone who was always quietly watching. Some move through the world with a perception not rooted in calculation, but in calibration. While most reach for knowledge by gathering information, comparing angles, and weighing logic, there are those who receive clarity from a place untouched by analysis. Their knowing doesn't come in the form of conclusions. It arrives like a current, silent but undeniable, carrying answers before the questions are even formed. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. To them, understanding isn't constructed, it's revealed. It's less of a process, more of a recognition, something felt before it's verbalized. It's not guesswork. It's not deduction. It's alignment with something deeper than intellect. This is not the kind of insight that comes with reading more or calculating faster. It's the kind that comes from stillness, from receptivity, from inner attunement. This mode of clarity unsettles those who depend on frameworks and flowcharts. They try to question, dissect, and challenge, believing that truth must always be earned through effort. But not all knowing is earned. Some is inherited by spirit, absorbed by presence, accessed through resonance. There's no formula for that kind of awareness. When something feels wrong, it is seen not with the eyes, but with the entire field of the being. The dissonance in someone's voice, the delay in a gesture, the absence in a smile, all become indicators. It's a kind of listening that hears beyond sound, a kind of seeing that doesn't require sight. Attempts to argue against this type of wisdom usually fall flat, not because it fights back, but because it doesn't depend on agreement to remain valid. Over time, what was dismissed as vague becomes impossible to ignore, and those who once doubted circle back, trying to understand how it was sent so early. But there's no blueprint to offer them, no linear path to retrace, for the answers didn't arrive. They were always there, waiting for the silence to speak them aloud. Some minds don't just outshine, they disrupt long-standing illusions. Every environment has its crowned intellect, the one-handed unearned reverence. Their voice becomes routine applause, their ideas seldom questioned. These figures often thrive not through depth, but through familiarity. Their confidence is mistaken for brilliance, until someone steps in without intention to challenge, but simply by embodying clarity. The moment that unspoken authority tries to posture or press against the wrong person, everything unravels. There's no outburst, no overcompensating, only steady words, spoken with grounded precision, and suddenly the atmosphere alters. The illusion begins to dissolve. Layers of admiration peel away, revealing the hollowness behind the reputation. No scenes are made. The disruption is subtle but irreversible. What was once seen as clever now feels exaggerated. What was once untouchable now seems ordinary. And the conversations begin, not about the content, but the contrast. The person who speaks plainly, yet powerfully, has shifted the hierarchy without asking for it. This is not about stealing attention. This is about breaking default beliefs with nothing but presence and truth. There's no competition, no rivalry, only exposure. The one who never had to shout or self-promote becomes the reference point. Suddenly, old titles hold less weight. The dynamic bends. The silence is no longer mistaken for absence. It's understood as preparation. The restraint is no longer viewed as passivity. It's recognized as intention. Now, those whispers are warnings. Not because harm is expected, but because transformation always feels like a threat to those invested in illusion. The room knows now. The person they thought was unimpressive is anything but, and the one they followed without question is now the subject of quiet reconsideration. Not because they were directly confronted, but because truth doesn't compete, it reveals. Perception, for some, is not a tool of intellect, but a language of the whole self. There are those who move through conversations not by calculating responses, but by absorbing frequencies. Their strength isn't volume or dominance, it's attunement. While others race to contribute opinions, they pause to feel what's hidden beneath the surface. There's no urge to out-talk, only a desire to understand. Words are just one layer. Beneath them are shifts in rhythm, waiting glances, unspoken heaviness and laughter. What's amiss entirely, they register instantly. It's not analysis, it's resonance. Their understanding forms in places where logic is silent. They catch tremors in emotion, misalignment in energy, hesitation in intention. People mistake their silence for hesitation, but their quiet is full. It listens with more than ears. It listens with awareness. They don't gather knowledge to prove themselves. They gather presence to mirror what's real. And when they speak, the impact isn't in information, it's in recognition. Truth, through them, doesn't arrive with drama. It arrives like a soft but undeniable shift. Not because they declare it, but because they reflect it. Their insight is not performance. It's embodiment, and that can feel uncomfortable to those hiding behind polished personas. Not because they've been judged, but because they've been seen. Some back away, unsure of what they've encountered. It wasn't confrontation, it was contact. A type of presence that doesn't flatter, doesn't compete, and doesn't miss. Their brilliance doesn't echo in applause. It rests in how they move, in what they choose not to say, in the way they hold space for what others pretend not to feel. They are not correcting, they are connecting. And it's that depth that disarms. Because you cannot lie easily to someone who hears beyond the sentence. You cannot manipulate someone whose awareness is shaped by something deeper than facts. They feel everything, and because of that, they cannot be fooled. Some carry an energy that shakes certainty without raising a single point. There's no need for big declarations or philosophical lectures. Sometimes, just a pause in the right moment, a look that holds still, or a sentence placed without decoration can unravel someone's entire framework of belief. Not out of dominance, but through presence alone. Not to impose truth, but to expose illusion. Change doesn't always arrive with banners and force. Sometimes it comes in the form of unsettling silence or an unexpected question that interrupts autopilot. That quiet frequency disturbs the mental programs people have repeated for years. Programs they never questioned until that moment. The jolt doesn't come from confrontation. It comes from reflection. A mirror held up with no distortion. No intention to fix. No hunger to correct. Yet a gentle unraveling begins. People start to notice the boundaries they never knew they placed around themselves. The rules they follow without reason. The stories they cling to that were never theirs to begin with. And it all falls apart, not by critique, but by clarity. This is the kind of effect that lingers long after the exchange. Words spoken with care, or sometimes not spoken at all, stay with others like echoes they didn't expect. They go home questioning what felt certain hours earlier. They hear their own voice differently, not because they were persuaded, because they were awakened. And this shift unsettles, especially those who rely on roles, performance, and mental autopilot. The internal cages get rattled. The safe routines get interrupted. And suddenly, your name becomes a whisper past in rooms where comfort once ruled. Not because harm was done, but because something dormant was shaken awake. That impact can't be manufactured. It isn't taught. It's something carried by those who've done the work of confronting themselves first. Those who walk with stillness that disarms and insight that frees. They don't repair others. They break the locks others forgot they had. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor His kingdom. May His grace guide you always. There are those who can trace deception before the sentence has even finished forming. Not by analyzing the words alone, but by tuning into what the words are trying to cover. There's no need for interruptions. No dramatic callouts. The exposure happens internally, quietly, precisely, and without missing a beat. Subtle tells give it away. The abrupt shift in rhythm, the overcorrection in tone, the layer of gloss applied too thickly over a shaky story. That dissonance is felt before it's understood. And while others follow the surface, this mind tracks the undercurrent. Every detail is cataloged. Every mismatch is noted. The room stays calm. The conversation flows. But behind the still eyes is a map being drawn in real time. A pattern of performance begins to emerge, too polished, too rehearsed, too scripted. There's no need to respond with fire. Precision thrives in silence. Calm allows more to unfold. And it does. The speaker keeps going, unaware they've already been read. They confuse the lack of reaction for agreement, never realizing they're revealing more than they're hiding. It's not suspicion, it's attunement. A depth of perception that reads beneath delivery, decoding the emotion that doesn't match the message. This kind of awareness makes people nervous, even if they don't know why. Something about it feels too exact, too hard to fool. Stories that once worked fall flat. Manipulations that used to glide now meet invisible resistance. And still, nothing needs to be said. Just knowing shifts the balance. Eventually, word spreads. Not in scandal, but in warning. The performer tells others to tread lightly, to be careful with half-truths, not because they were exposed publicly, but because they were seen too clearly. And being seen that clearly feels like exposure even in silence. It's not about being suspicious, it's about being attuned. Not about policing behavior, but understanding motive before it's explained. And that kind of discernment, it can't be faked, distracted, or flattered. It senses what isn't being said. And once it does, the truth becomes irreversible. Some people teach without trying, simply by existing with integrity where others rely on performance. There's a certain kind of presence that interrupts long-held admiration for cleverness. The kind that doesn't compete, doesn't chase applause, and doesn't rely on polished delivery to prove value. While others have spent years being praised for intellect alone, someone walks in who lives by principles, not performances. And that contrast reveals what's been overlooked. Suddenly, the room begins to see what it hadn't questioned. That brilliance without balance is just control in disguise. That being articulate doesn't always mean being wise. That fast minds can be dangerous in the wrong hands. The sharpest people aren't always the safest ones. And what once passed for leadership begins to look like manipulation when placed beside clarity rooted in care. This shift isn't loud. It doesn't dismantle egos through argument. It simply reveals by existing. Through steady presence, people begin to recognize how easily they've been swayed by charm without character. And it stings, because now they must reevaluate who they trust and why. What once dazzled now feels hollow. The ones who built their identity on dominance feel the threat, not of rebellion, but of truth. Not because they've been attacked, but because someone arrived who exposes without trying. Someone who carries both insight and intention. Someone who doesn't just know, but applies. Now discomfort grows. Not in chaos, but in realization. People start asking different questions. They start paying attention to what's real, not just what sounds smart. And the old voices lose volume. The spotlight dims where it once stayed fixed. Because now the difference is clear. The ones who use knowledge to distort are being seen for what they are. Not by accusation, but by reflection. And that reflection is held by someone who never had to dominate to be powerful. That kind of alignment can't be mimicked. And in spaces where manipulation once reigned, it shakes the ground entirely. Some minds are so finely tuned, they become a line people hesitate to cross. Over time, the stories shift. It's no longer ridicule or underestimation, it's strategy. Conversations behind closed doors turn cautious when your name is mentioned. People no longer seek to challenge, they seek to avoid exposure. Not because harm is expected, but because the margin for deception is gone. Those who once attempted clever traps quickly realized their designs were transparent. Games collapsed before they finished setting the rules. While others were still speaking, the situation was already understood and disengaged from. No mess, no noise, just absence. The kind that speaks louder than conflict. If your heart overflows with divine love, now is the moment to let it shine. Click the super thank you button on YouTube and give $50 or more to help carry God's light to others. Your gift will bless not only your life, but countless others. You are part of His sacred plan. Your kindness may be the answer to someone's prayer. Share your blessings and honor his kingdom. May his grace guide you always. You don't confront with chaos. You observe. You let the pattern write itself, then remove your energy from it entirely. What's left behind is their own unraveling. It's not punishment. It's precision. And those left watching begin to recalibrate how they move around you. Now, warnings travel ahead of you. Caution has replaced curiosity. They speak your name like a variable they can't predict. Watch how you move. They say, not out of hatred, but out of respect wrapped in nervousness. You don't announce what you know. You simply never forget what you see. Deceit no longer finds safety in your silence. It recognizes that something is calculating, something beyond emotion or reaction. You're not distracted by the presentation. You see the construct, the motivation, the repetition, and that level of perception shifts the energy instantly. People don't fear you. They fear what you uncover without effort. What they thought could be hidden behind charm or complexity is mirrored back too clearly. And in that mirror, masks fall apart. You never raise your voice, but you raise the frequency of awareness just by being present. That's what makes them rethink their approach. That's why even those who pretend to dismiss you adjust their tone. Because they've come to learn. You don't bite, you reveal. And that kind of accuracy, the kind that doesn't warn before it witnesses, is a force they can't manipulate. Only respect, from a distance,